Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by owner, operator, creator of Fantasy Guides and the Fantasy Guides page on Instagram, Steve Rippey, as well as Fantasy Guides contributor, runner and operator of the Devy Rookie Watch page on Instagram. Give it a follow. It's a great follow, especially this time of year. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? Can you feel the NFL draft right around the corner?
I can, and I can definitely feel it, Andrew, because I remembered I accidentally booked a Disney trip during the NFL draft.
Oh, Steven.
So it's going to be it's just going to be one of those days. You know, I'm going to try to enjoy Disney while looking at my phone. So I'm sure my wife won't be completely annoyed with me by night's end.
I was literally, Steven, just going to text you like tomorrow morning and be like, hey, what are we doing? What bar are we going to? What brewery are we hitting? And I was all excited. And you ruined it.
I know, trust me. Because that's one of those, Jesse, I don't know, you get it too. That's one of my like free pass days. Like it's just known when the NFL draft comes up, it's like,
right,
babe, sorry, I've got the NFL draft. So it's just a known thing of like a guy's night that I get to partake in. And I did it to myself. I booked a Disney trip without thinking because it might have been a little cheaper. You know, it's after spring break before the school year gets out. And I'll be able to see day 2 and day 3, but day 1, man, I'm going to miss round 1, which is sad. I'm sure I'll catch it on my phone, though.
We really need to get a camera at all time with your wife, and it's just like on you as you're freaking out frantically, like texting Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be Jacob. It absolutely will be Jacob being asked for like links to things so that you can post them and that you guys can talk about them. So Jacob, I apologize for it in advance for what Steven's going to do, but your wife needs the panic cam on you as you're turning red, trying to figure out, oh my God, the Cardinals have traded back and then back up and the Chargers have moved back 4 times. It's going to be awesome seeing you squirm.
Oh, I'm going to really try to enjoy that day at Disney, but it's going to be distracted for sure.
Well, and usually, Steven, you're pumping out content.
I know.
I know sitting there at the brewery, you were making every single time somebody was selected, you were putting out a content.
I know. Might not do that this year. Might just do a recap, some recap content Friday morning. I'm going to talk to Jacob between now and then and see how much he wants to do. So we'll see. Hopefully.
Jacob, God bless your soul. Steven tries to make a different kind of magical experience in the land of magic. But welcome in, guys. Glad to have you at the Fantasy Guides podcast. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or hey, YouTube. Look at my visuals I spend so much time making before these hours.
You know what, Andrew? I was like thinking before we did all this and you were going to start taking over some of this, I'm going to need to really help Andrew with like creating some graphics and stuff. And you're doing great. I don't know what you're using. I don't know if it's Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Canva, whatever you're doing. Canva. I think it's doing great. So
I've learned how to copy and paste photos off of the internet. It's what I do. It's what Jesse said a while ago. It's just teacher things. I'm natural at it. Well practiced. Mm-hmm. But yeah, getting into it, drop like, subscribe, please rate, please share. And heck, speaking of sharing, why not share the promo code we got over on Underdog? Because if you want to make some bets on these rookies going into the future year or draft some of these rookies in the upcoming draft, use our promo code GUIDES, GUIDES, GUIDES. I added some sound effects, Steven. I really should have added some, like a bell. That way, whenever I spell that right every time, because I'm really sure I really focus every time I say that. Promo code GUIDES, there it is again, to get yourself a deposit match on Underdog so you can draft guys like CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs. Because, guys, we got some big news that dropped that we didn't get the chance to talk about because, of course, timing. But Stephon Diggs was traded to the Houston Texans a week ago in exchange for a 2025, not even this year, a 2025 second-round pick going back to the Bills. And this is like as big as a fantasy impact across the board as we could probably ever dream of. You don't see these kind of guys get traded often. So we got to talk about how it's going to affect Stroud, Diggs, Allen. Steven, I'll kind of let you start off the rip on this. Who do you think is actually impacted the most by Stephon Diggs moving?
I think there's a few parts to that. I think the most negatively impacted might be Diggs himself joining that Houston wide receiver core that I think's already was already one of the better ones. And if you want to throw in Dalton Schultz into the mix as well at tight end, that's a good tight end. So I think it hurts him the most. He was just a complete alpha with the Bills, and he's over like a 25% target share every year with the Bills, over 150 targets every year with the Bills. That's not going to be the case right now with the Houston Texans. We could see him drop 30 targets this year, compared to what he's had with Josh Allen, and that's going to make an impact. Will he still be good? Yeah, but I don't know that he's a wide receiver 1 anymore. I think he's a wide receiver 2. I think all of these guys have wide receiver 2 potential. I think it's going to be hard for any of them, though, to become a wide receiver 1. So I think it definitely impacts the ceiling of all of them and kind of lowers what I think of all of them, all those wide receivers prior to this trade.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You just went from a spot where you were the guy. Who's the wide receiver 1 right now in Buffalo? It's Jesse's guy. Jesse, you're a big Khalil Shakir guy, right?
That's right. Boise State, baby.
Absolutely. Boise State, man, is now all of a sudden the wide receiver 1, arguably with Curtis Samuel over there in Buffalo. So like he went from a vacant offense now to a very packed offense. There were 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in Houston last year who had 75 plus targets, and Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, they all earned those. Robert Woods, not so much, but because he was the 4th guy there. But he's going to be in a loaded offense, and it's not like you're just trading volume for efficiency. CJ Stroud will be efficient. Josh Allen was efficient. I was ripping into you guys a little bit. I am a little bit worried about Stephon Diggs to the point where I don't think the cliff is here. Like, I don't think he's going to be terrible next year. But if I have to draft him or guys in a similar tier right next to him, off the head, that's like Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison, DJ Moore, I'm taking the other guys, as I'm afraid of the competition and the potential fall off as he's going to age 30, 31 season. It's a little scary for me.
Yeah. I'm not worried about his talent. Keenan Allen just had the best season of his career this past year at age 31. So I think Diggs, I don't think I really saw a ton where the talent really dropped off. I do think the competition level really got hard towards the second half of the season in Buffalo. And I think that the weather is always, I'd like to look at this. We talked about it a little bit, Andrew, but I'd like to see what Diggs splits have been, for December compared to the other parts of the year, playing in Buffalo, playing in the cold, because you got to think that has somewhat of an effect. If anything, maybe it makes Diggs a little more desirable come playoff time. Like if you're trading for a playoff Diggs, I don't mind that as much, playing more indoor games, more warm weather games. But, Jesse's guy, Khalil Shakir, if we want to go over to the Buffalo side of it, yeah, I think both him and Curtis Samuel could be huge for these guys. These guys could go from like afterthoughts in your fantasy draft to, I think both guys, probably not both, but at least one of them, I think could finish as a wide receiver too, a top 24 wide receiver. We saw Hunter Renfrow a few years ago finish as the wide receiver 12. I think it's possible on like kind of an outlier perspective of that happening with one of these guys. So I think it could be huge for them. Now they're going to add somebody in the draft almost definitely, but it's no guarantee that a rookie that they add is going to hit the ground running right away. So at least for the first half of the season, I really like those 2 receivers in Buffalo, and I love what it does for Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a lock for top 10 for sure, but I think he's got a very good chance of being a top 5 tight end this season.
Steven, the people want to know, what's your opinion? What's it do for CJ Stroud? Do you vault him all of a sudden out of like the Joe Burrow-y range where he kind of was? Are you putting him with Patrick Mahomes, with Josh Allen, with Jalen Hurts in fantasy football?
In Dynasty, I think it puts him really close to Patrick Mahomes for me.
Clip it. He said he's Patrick Mahomes. Clip it.
I said close to. I think Mahomes has too big of a track record to go above him. But you got to be excited with what he did last year. The fact that he's got 2 young wide receivers in Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and now he gets Stephon Diggs. Now I know it's only for 1 year, but having that offense right now to give him just that much more confidence, that much more explosiveness. He's still only 22 and a half years old. Age plays a factor in Dynasty. So I don't know. I'd put the big 3, Allen, Mahomes, Hurts over him. Probably Lamar Jackson too, just because Lamar's still pretty young, still running a lot. I still love the weapons that Lamar has as well. So I'd probably it doesn't really necessarily move CJ Stroud for me a ton, but it gives me more confidence putting him over like Joe Burrow, for example, or Justin Herbert or some of those guys.
I would agree. And it's to note that Stephon Diggs, he had a really weird contract after this year. It's basically club options, which you don't see much in football. That's more of a baseball thing. So excuse me. So now they went and changed the contract, and Stephon Diggs is a 1-year deal. Yeah. So dynasty, it's a push. This year will be awesome. I'm drafting him heavy this year. I'm not going to be so into him. Dynasty, this doesn't change me huge there. Yeah. So any other thought? Oh, Josh Allen, I guess we should be mentioned there too.
Last person we'll mention is Josh Allen. I still would probably put him. I don't know. We're getting close. We drop our draft guide May 1st, and so we'll have our rankings dialed in more. It's going to be really. We'll know more with who the Bills have, what they've done with the draft, or if they've made any trades. I mean, we could see a veteran wide receiver get traded during the draft. It's all possible, but I don't know. It's going to be close between him and Jalen Hurts for me. I think this year, I think I could see myself giving Hurts the nod just because of the weapons that Hurts has compared to what Josh Allen will have. But I don't know. Josh Allen, he does everything. If he doesn't throw as many touchdowns, he'll probably run in more touchdowns. He'll probably rush for more yards. So I'm not going to knock him too much because I think he's just that elite of a quarterback.
Yep. And Josh Allen was good at the end of last year, even with Stephon Diggs not doing much.
You're right.
Jesse, this make you feel better about our legendary Tank Dell trade that we had earlier in the season? You saw this coming, right?
No, I already know what you're up to, Andrew. You are using Devy Rookie Watch's team as just I'm basically like the Colorado Rockies to your New York Yankees. You're just watching me develop these young wide receivers and then picking them up. The only thing is the wins haven't really come along yet. I guess that's a bad analogy for the win part. But have you noticed that, Steven? He's taking all my young wide receivers.
You know, I did notice he got. I don't know if I knew Tank Dell, but he got Jayden Reed, right?
Yeah. Jayden Reed and Tank
I like
Dell.
Jayden Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told Jesse as soon as we made the trade, he goes, I know what you're doing. I'm up to you. I'm like, yeah, well,
but I'm letting it happen anyway.
Exactly. If you like a player and I like a player, the odds are that player is pretty darn good. Give Devy Rookie Watch a follow. It is worth your time, people. Speaking of rookie opinions on things, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, which is breaking our way through some rookie tiers. Jesse and I, we're tired of talking about it. We've said it a million times. This guy, they're all in a tier. Pick your favorite, move on, move forward. We'll see where things land. We're done with that. All righty. That is messing around. We're here to stand on business. We are going to say, hey, within this tier, we are going to pick this player over that player. We're going to pick that guy over that guy. So today's the thing I got here, got a little game almost. Not really a game, but I like game shows. We're going to play a little this guy or that guy. And sometimes there's a third guy. So I don't know if it'd be this guy, that guy, and that dude, or what would be the third? We need
that dude works. Yeah.
I like that dude.
All right. This guy, that dude over there. We're going to pick through these guys. They're all in tiers. Steven made this list. I am assuming he pulled it off of our consensus rankings because, well, these guys are all right next to each other. And they're guys we've been talking about all year who are really close. And it's just kind of your flavor. Pick your flavor. Whoever you like the most, that'll be your top guy in the tier. But we're not really knocking you for liking one over the other, except for now. Now I'm going to knock you guys as if it really dramatically does have a huge difference. And so, yeah, get ready to eat my dust as we debate some of these, as I guarantee there will be some disagreements. Our first part of the debate, and if you're in a super flex league, I mean, after the 101, 102, I mean, I think we all think that's like not Drake Maye, Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. I mean, right after that, the debate starts. Who do we like better? This guy, Jayden Daniels, or that guy, Drake Maye? Steven got to ramble on about the Stephon Diggs stuff. So, Jesse, hop right in. Which one are you taking? Drake Maye, college quarterback, young man at a UNC, or old man at a LSU with a little bit of mobility?
Oh man, I can see this is going to be tough already because it is. This is we're doing the tier within the tier kind of thing. Yeah. And I can't. It's tough because I can't hate on either of those guys going. I think what you have, and this is where it boils down to the owner and what type of team that they want and what they're trying to do. I would almost say it's like the Steven versus Jesse thing. I like consistency and maybe something that I'm going to have long term. and Steven swings for the fences. He wants to win championships. And so Jayden Daniels is the swing for the fences guy. If he stays healthy, he just has a much higher ceiling than Drake Maye, especially for fantasy. I think in real life, they're about the same ceiling wise, but for fantasy, just his ability to move is much better. So I think I'm going to almost play the Jacob advocate here. I think Jacob would say Jayden Daniels is clearly, with the higher ceiling, that's the pick that you make in that situation. I will say that that's going a little bit against which one I like more. I think Drake may be a better pro. It may be a safer pick, but Jayden Daniels, I'm going to go Jayden Daniels if I'm forced to choose in this tier, just based on upside.
Steven, what about you? He took the old man Jayden Daniels. I guess you're old. Are you pairing with him too?
I thought Jesse was going to go May. I was all prepared to be like saying the opposite of what Jesse said, but
you're influencing me, Steven. That's part of what you have to realize here. Just years and years of you beating me over the head with swing for the fences, try and win the championship, quit trying to be. And then the other one that has been interesting is you guys have talked about a lot. I think it was when I wasn't on the pod, is you were talking about don't be a middle of the road dynasty team.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting because I think my entire first, however many years we did that first dynasty, 4, 5, 6 years, I took 6th every year. Like
you made the playoffs every year.
I know, but it was like, I never did the tank and I never became the guy that could unseed Steven. So I do think that I'm starting to be influenced by that. That's all I'm saying, Steven. So the Jayden Daniels that's the Steven thing. It's like, hey, go win your league. It's Anthony Richardson. It's like, last year I was kind of like, I don't know. And it's like, well, fantasy wise, he's out there running around scoring touchdowns. That's what you want.
Well, though, my argument to what you're just saying is I feel like if we're gonna comp these players, I feel like Jayden Daniels could be discount Lamar Jackson and Drake Maye could be discount Josh Allen. Which of those quarterbacks has the higher ceiling? Josh Allen has. It's hard because Lamar Jackson's put up the best fantasy season we've ever seen, 27 points per game. Josh Allen hasn't done that, but he's basically been the QB1 4 straight seasons because he's that big arm. He's such a good passer. He's so big. That's another thing. Drake Maye, he's a big dude, on
the field, stays on the field.
Yeah.
That's that frame piece, right? We always want to consider frame when you're evaluating quarterbacks.
This was a really tough one for me. I kept flip-flopping when I was trying to come up with who I'd pick. And I think I settled on Jayden Daniels. And part of that is I think most people, when they look at these two quarterbacks, I don't know if they easily see the Josh Allen ceiling with May, but I do think that they see a potential Lamar Jackson type player in Jayden Daniels. I think everybody's really excited about the rushing quarterback right now. I think Jayden Daniels, assuming they go back-to-back in the NFL draft and their situations are relatively similar, I think people are going to look at the rushing upside that Jayden Daniels has. I think they're going to be more likely it's going to keep his value up for that first year. When I'm deciding between these two, I want to go, who's going to have the best value from when I draft them to a year from now? And I think both will still have good value, but I think Jayden Daniels, everyone's going to go, oh, well, if I have Daniels on my squad, he's going to rush for 800 yards a year. I want that. I don't care. He can develop as a passer. I just want the 800 rushing yards. And I think that's going to hold a little more value. So I'm giving just the slightest edge to Jayden Daniels. I mean, he does have some metrics I like a little bit better than May. He's better PFF grade. Big time throw percentage was higher. His rushing grade obviously was higher. Adjusted completion percentage was higher. So there's a lot of things to like about him. He won the Heisman Trophy. I mean, first round draft picks that win the Heisman Trophy at quarterback, the recent history's been pretty good. So I think he's in good company. He gets the slight nod for me.
Okay, here's why you guys are wrong. Okay. So the reason
I don't even think Andrew listened to anything I had to say. I don't think so. He was just waiting for his answer.
Yeah. 100%. I got a lot of stuff written down, so I got to get to it. I just have to ignore everything you just said. So firstly, that dude's old. Old people suck. Enough said. Additionally, he's old, and that's when he became good. Friends, he had one good year when he was 23 years old playing against 18-year-olds. Yes, it's the SEC. I don't care.
Wait a minute. Is every player he played against 18?
No, but I'm just saying, like, that's if you're not
playing freshman.
If you're not 18, 19, 20 and you're playing, you're also not that good. Like, you're just old. Like, if you're not the young guy who he's physically bigger than and just been around long enough and is smarter than, then you are some old head who actually isn't that talented. Guys, in his final season, he had an awesome year. I cannot discount it. He had 40 touchdowns in 3,800 passing yards. That's incredible. Won the Heisman justifiably. I thought he should have. He was 23 to end that season, my friends. Drake Maye had a season of the same caliber and better when he was 20 years old. The first year he started, he comes in the league. And at age 20, he throws for 4,321 yards and 38 touchdowns. Oh, the rushing upside. Got it. Steven, you dropped the Josh Allen comp. Jesse, I know you know he's mobile too, but let's just point out the numbers. 698 rushing yards in that same season that he threw for 4,300 yards and 38 touchdowns. That's a Heisman caliber season. He just didn't win it because Drake Maye, or I keep saying Drake Maye. No, wait, I'm lost myself now. Caleb Williams. I have a tendency to say Caleb Maye and Drake Williams. That's not it. Anyway, Caleb Williams ruined his Heisman chance, or else we're saying the same thing about him. He comes back his next year. He doesn't get his guys around him, and he has a slightly worse season. Have we not learned through Kenny Pickett that we don't want these guys who come out of nowhere with talent all around them and end up being really, really good? Don't say Joe Burrow. Hold your mouth.
I was just going to bring up the other LSU quarterback who came in a little bit older.
Yes, that one worked out because he had the best season ever passing. As a passer, Jayden Daniels is Justin Fields, and I hope he works out, but that's what he is. He's skinnier Justin Fields, and I don't want to be chasing that because we saw what happened. Does Justin Fields have huge upside? Yes. I think Justin Fields would have been awesome if he was properly catered in the league. Drake Maye, I think, is already better than Jayden Daniels, and I think he's going to have more traits to positively mold into if he doesn't have the perfect landing spot, which I don't think either gentleman will.
Well, and I've used this cop out on, I think I used it on both of the mock drafts that we've done previously, is I'm choosing whichever one goes to the Commanders.
I know. So, I'm trying to do this, Jesse, like if we, without the landing spot,
yeah.
I think that'll change a lot for us, but I get what you're saying.
Well,
I'm thinking Drake
and you know
Maye,
what? Everything that, like, it was funny listening to Andrew, though, is I was just getting these like Kenny Pickett vibes, these like really oh man, now I'm having like a little post-traumatic stress. Now I'm thinking about Kenny Pickett and how I knew that he like wasn't that good and that he just became good all of a sudden because he had Jordan Addison and had all these weapons around him. And I'm like, oh man, he was really surrounded. We got 2 first-round wide receivers that he was surrounded by. Were they propping him up? So, and he was much older. He is definitely, just so everybody's aware, way more volatile. Well, Jayden Daniels is the volatile choice. I do think Drake Maye is the much safer pick, and you make a lot of good points there, Andrew. Lots of words.
I will say, do you guys remember after Justin Fields' first season? I mean, he bombed his first season. I remember the owner in our league that had Justin Fields. I tried to trade to buy low on Justin Fields, and he said, "Man, everybody's trying to get him from me," because I think that would be the case too. I think Jayden Daniels could bomb his rookie year, and going into the next year, you could still get value for him. I think people are still going to be excited that elite, because I would say he's got elite rushing upside. I think that can be the ultimate trump card, or it just holds so much value. So, yeah, these guys are really close, though. I mean, this is why we're doing this.
Absolutely. And like I said, I really won't knock anyone for taking Jayden Daniels over Drake Maye. I'm just a big Drake Maye guy. Big arm, like big arms. 2 other guys who I really can't knock anyone for, and I'm probably not as fiery about the difference between, is 2 receivers at the very top, Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison. There's discussions which guy should be wide receiver 1, and we're hearing legitimate conversations from like Daniel Jeremiah hearing, hey, some people really, really do. NFL GMs have Malik Nabers over Marvin Harrison. So what are you guys thinking? In our little battle here between Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison. And before you mention anything, I forgot to have a bell sound effect. Like it's a boxing match. You ready?
Oh, gotcha.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Get into it. Who would like to start? Malik Nabers, Marvin Harrison. I don't know if we'll have a disagreement here.
I guess I'll go first since Jesse went first on the last one. I think if you were to poll everyone in your league, or give them the chance to draft these two guys, I think 9 out of 10 are going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you might get one that would take Malik Nabers. I think if we're just comparing their last season, Malik Nabers almost looks a little bit better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, their college target share is like identical, 31.9 to 31.8. Yards per route run, 3.6 to 3.4. Yards per reception, 17.5 to 18. I mean, it goes on and on. The one thing I will say, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dominator rating of almost 48% over. Ooh. It's just it's elite. It's extremely elite. We saw him do it for multiple seasons. Both of them come from arguably the best schools you could come from if you're going to create a wide receiver. So that's almost a push for me, although I might give the slight edge to Ohio State there. But I'm going to give it to Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he is the safest pick. I think their ceilings are probably about the same. And I think that value-wise, he's just going to be a little bit higher than Nabers, but not much. But I think he will be in most leagues.
Jesse, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm Marvin Harrison Jr. on this one. I think it's pretty clear, but that's not really me trying to knock Malik Nabers down or poke a bunch of holes in his game. I just think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the clear number one. I think it's a little bit like talking about Caleb Williams versus the other two guys that we just talked about. Yeah, they're great, but I think that there's a clear one. I've been saying Larry Fitzgerald the whole time, which it'll make it really funny if he goes to the Cardinals. That's just kind of who he is. I don't know that he's going to be catching a screen and house calling it like Malik Nabers can, but I think that he's going to be incredibly consistent for a really, really long time. A gigantic catch radius makes insane contested and sideline catches. And I think he's just going to be pulling in a high rate of what's thrown at him. So yeah, they're both very exciting players. I think that, but I think for me, it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything that hasn't been said already, really, other than just every time Marvin Harrison has been on the football field, he's produced. And even his freshman year, you go look at the stats, he didn't do much. You go into those game logs, when we came bowl season and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson decided that they would sit aside for the NFL draft so that they could both go top 15 in the NFL draft, which is insane. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 3 touchdowns in that game, in that bowl game against Utah, which was a good defense at the time. So it's just like every year he is just amazing. The one thing that actually is like, all right, I want to warn people, I really don't see it as you can take Malik Nabers and I won't get mad at you. But why I'm going to always take Marv is because of anything Marv is bad at is not going to be something in the NFL that will tank his career. Like Marv's thing in his knocks is he's not elite speed. We've seen plenty of guys succeed without it. And he's not a great yak guy or yards after catch. And again, we've seen plenty of guys succeed without that. Chris Olave, again, fellow Ohio State receiver. Malik Nabers, his things he's bad at could really be detrimental potentially. I don't think he's going to bust. I think he's too good. But he's a career slot guy. At least 56.8% of his career snaps has been out of the slot. That tells you that they're protecting him. His release isn't amazing. I mean, it's amazing because he's fast. He's not Marvin Harrison cut clean. Size, obviously, concern because he's not huge.
I wouldn't call it a concern, but are you talking about Nabers?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a concern, but yeah, he doesn't get the edge compared to Harrison.
He's not going to be the strongest guy, the biggest guy like Marv is at his size. And I'm not saying it's a concern, but that there's just a little bit more that could be detrimental in the league, not being as experienced, not being as clean cut. That could pop up, but man, go take Nabers if you want Nabers. I'm not going to tell you no.
One more thing on that. Here's like kind of a dynasty thing. I'll ask you, Andrew. If you have, let's just say this is super flex, you have the second pick. So let's just assume Caleb Williams goes 1 and Marvin Harrison goes 2 and Malik Nabers goes 3. Would you rather just take Harrison at pick 2 or trade back 1 pick? Like if the person behind you's, really wanting Harrison, I guess my question is, what would it take for you to move back to get Nabers instead of Harrison? Like what kind of value would you look for?
First thing I'm going to say is that if Marv goes to the Cardinals, I don't care. I literally won't move off of him. Okay. I'm taking him no matter what. So landing spot will matter. But I want at least like
Nabers goes to the Chargers.
What'd you say?
Say Marv goes to the Cardinals, Nabers goes to the Chargers.
So I mean, I'm still holding there with Marv. I just think it's a phenomenal situation. But to answer your actual question, at least a second. I need at least a decently high second. It's got to be like 202.
I was thinking
202. Yeah, 203. Something where I'm going to get another player I can actually use. More than a coin flip, I think bet is kind of what I'm looking for. That's not like anybody's really that much better. But yeah, that's a great question, because if that happens, it's going to happen. There's somebody in your league who has heard of Marvin Harrison because his dad, or because they've heard of him for years, and is going to become bullish, like Steven's saying. Yeah, if someone will offer you enough, you should move back for it.
And I think you could get more than that second from
sure,
those type of leagues.
Yeah, it's just a name everyone's heard. But because we've talked about it enough, this next part, I think, is where things get a lot more interesting, other than my intense love for Drake Maye, is some guys, some tiers lower down. When we get lower down, that's always where it gets messier. And this really is a good discussion. I have a clear stance on it, but Odunze versus Brock Bowers is a great one, because look, your drafts are going to go Caleb Williams, and not in any particular order. The first guys off the boards will be Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels, Malik Nabers, Marvin Harrison. Okay, those are the 5. Now 6-7,
super flex leagues.
Yeah, super flex leagues. 6-7. Now that you're past the main receivers, you got Rome, who a lot of people say are a tier down. You got Bowers, incredible generational tight end prospect. I think we've talked about a guy like that before in the near past. Where are you going, Jesse? I'll let you start on this one. I know you're a huge Bowers guy, but will you still take Rome? Or are you going Bowers in this?
Yeah, I think, we've been seeing a lot of hype for the Jets for Brock Bowers. And at that point, he's over Odunze for me. He goes to a team where there is no tight end there at all, and there's a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing him the ball. Rome in that instance could end up with a team like the Bears with a rookie quarterback. So yeah, I mean, even not knowing where they're going to end up, Brock Bowers. Well, what's interesting about these two players when you put them side by side is when the game was on the line, those are the two guys that their teams leaned on. And they were, two of the top 5 teams in the nation. And they were two of the best players on those teams. So it's really interesting, because that's what you want. You want the guy that in crunch time, it's where the ball is going. Everybody knows the ball's going there, and they still make the play.
That's why I like AD Mitchell. Sorry, just had to slide in my propaganda. I won't get to talk about him today.
They are very, very similar players in that aspect, where when the game's on the line, you know where the ball's going. I'm Brock Bowers. I'm taking Brock Bowers. I might even take Brock Bowers over Nabers, depending on where he ends up. So I am a truther there. I think that he's going to be. I think the thing that makes him different. I always blank on his name. The kid out of Florida that's now with
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. I think the thing that makes him different than the Kyle Pitts thing is Kyle Pitts just lived in the red zone, and Dan Mullen, the coach at the time, was really, really good at creating situations for Kyle Pitts to succeed in the red zone that year. And that's where a lot of that hype came from. And then he looked good in shorts too. Brock Bowers just owns the entire field all the time. That entire middle of the field, he's just so dangerous all the time. So he's a better prospect than Kyle Pitts. And we were all very excited about Kyle Pitts. So I think it's important to note that all around better wide receiver prospect. Kyle Pitts had so many red zone touchdowns, looked so good in shorts. But we may have be seeing that he's maybe not quite as complete of a wide receiver, route runner, all of those things as he moved into the NFL.
To jump in there with you, Jesse, again, another big difference between the two guys, kind of what you're going off of, is Kyle Pitts is an X wide receiver. Neither of these guys are a tight end. Sorry, just going to say it. We have a slot receiver and we have an X receiver. Kyle Pitts is an X receiver. I'm going to talk ad nauseum about how much harder it is to be an X receiver. And that's what Kyle Pitts is trying to work with, because he's not the body type like Brock Bowers to rough it and tough it. Kyle Pitts is a big, long string bean. He's not built. Bowers built a little tougher. So moving in the slot just going to be naturally easier for him as well. So I think that's a good difference to make as well. Steven, before I tell you what the right answer between Odunze and Bowers is, what's your opinion?
I put this one up here on purpose because this is a dilemma I'm going to have in our draft. I feel like
this is completely selfish.
I'm doing my homework. I will go back and listen to this and take notes.
Well, Steven, I want to ask you just one question before you jump into it.
Yeah.
What is harder to find? An elite wide receiver?
Oh, a tight end for sure.
Tight end.
An elite tight end.
What's more likely to find?
And that's what Andrew's saying too. So I think the safer pick is Rome. I think that I don't see him failing unless he goes to just a poverty franchise or something. If he goes to the Giants or something, maybe I'm going to be a little more scared to take him. But I like the player a lot in Rome Odunze. It kind of reminds me, not to quite as high of a level, but similar to, there was a lot of debates, Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase, when Jamar Chase and the two of them were entering the league. And at the time, I wasn't, writing content or anything, but I really thought that it was a coin flip between those two. And I thought, Kyle Pitts, all he has to do, like Jamar Chase has to average at least 17 points per game. It was my thinking at the time, somewhere around there, to be like a wide receiver 1. Whereas Kyle Pitts, all he's got to do is average like 12 points per game. So like and if he's playing almost like a wide receiver, I thought, he's going to give you that positional advantage much easier than Chase was. Well, if you took, Kyle Pitts over Jamar Chase, you're regretting that big time. So I kind of see a similarity between Brock Bowers and Rome Odunze. But what I do like about Bowers taking this pick, like if I just look at first round picks the past decade, like let's start with 2013, Tyler Eifert. Now, he was actually a really good tight end before he really got hurt. He started getting a lot of injuries. I think he broke his ankle. But there was some debates between who was the better tight end of that class, him or Travis Kelce, for a little bit there. You had Eric Ebron. Now, he was a complete bust. He was a top 10 pick. He picked 10 in 2014. Then you had O.J. Howard. That guy was a bust. But then in 2017, also, you had Evan Ingram, who's come into his own. David Njoku, who's come into his own. Hayden Hurst. Now, that I think a lot of people just question that pick in general when the Ravens took him. So I don't even like that comparison as much. But then we've got TJ Hawkinson, top 10 pick. Now we have Noah Fant, top 15 pick. Now he busted. And then we have Kyle Pitts. And I think Kyle Pitts definitely we can say is a bust, but the verdict is still out now that we've got a new coaching staff. I think there's some good comps in there to these like highly drafted tight ends. There's a few busts, but I think there's some guys that did really well. And then if you want to compare Brock Bowers to Mackey Award winners, he won it 2 years in a row, which no tight end's ever done before. So he's already like head and shoulders above so many other tight ends. But other recent winners include Trey McBride, who's the tight end 3 in Dynasty right now, maybe the tight end 2. Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, and Mark Andrews. So that's some really good company. So I don't know. I'm really anxious to see where these guys get drafted, but I think I'm going to agree with Jesse. I'm going to lean Brock Bowers here. I think he just has that chance. If I can get Travis Kelce now, I'm taking it. Versus Rome Odunze, maybe let's just say he's the next Jamar Chase. Well, there's a lot of guys that are similar to Jamar Chase right now. There's not a lot of guys similar to Kelce.
I mean, the reason that Jamar Chase is set above the rest is because he's a perennially where he's going to be ranked. He's that good that no matter what his situation is, he's still going to be a wide receiver 1. I just did some write-ups for you, Steven. And shockingly, Jamar Chase has been a wide receiver 1 every single season he's been in the league. And I'm not saying Rome Odunze is as good of a prospect as Jamar Chase. He's not. But you're seeking that guy, the set it and forget it for the next 5 years kind of guy. And you might get that at tight end, but someone summon Casey from the heavens to get the commandments. Gentlemen, it's a tight end. And I know Bowers is different. I just made the argument with Jesse. It's just that's the hair that makes the difference here. Like it is fine between the two. It's just for you, Odunze and Bowers in the same tier at their position. And I know the wide receiver in that tier hits more often, although you are correct. The tight end is more valuable.
I think Brock Bowers is the Marvin Harrison of his position in this draft. And that's
Steven, who's the tight end 1 in Dynasty right now? Sam Laporta?
Yeah.
Where was he drafted?
I don't think that matters.
He was a second round pick, but
yeah, I don't think that matters as much as Brock Bowers is a way better prospect. So, it's pretty rare that we can say that as well. Caleb Williams can be really good. We're not putting him above like Patrick Mahomes right now, right? You can't just go up to the he's not above Josh Allen, right? I think literally Brock Bowers is better than Sam Laporta. And if he goes to a situation where he's going to be receiving the ball at any clip, even close to Sam Laporta, he's going to do what Sam Laporta has done. So I think in like non-Superflex, I think you could take him number 2 overall after Marvin Harrison.
Clip it.
Now, Andrew, let me play devil's advocate a little bit with if Rome Odunze completely falls on his face, which I don't think will happen. But let's just say he puts up a Quentin Johnson type season. And let's say Brock Bowers puts up a Kyle Pitts season like he did last year, not Kyle Pitts rookie year, but like he has a really bad season. Who you think is going to hold more value next year?
That is an interesting one.
I don't know if it'll be that different. It's just going to be a guy.
Come on. It's way different. Kyle Pitts is still Kyle Pitts sucks and is somehow still retaining value.
He's retained value for years.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And
the tight end, the flop, but who's more likely to flop? And it's just a positional thing. The tight end is more likely to flop in his first year, while the receiver is more likely to hit. I mean, I think
that's right. This why it's such
shocked if either of these guys flop.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to look up. I wanted to see some of the wide receivers from recent. I should have had this pulled up ahead of time, but I thought of it just now. But just wide receivers, like you can go back to the 2016 draft class when we saw guys like I'm not going to remember their names, but like the guy that Cleveland drafted, Jesse, that played at Baylor. Corey Coleman. I mean, that guy's value was gone after the first year. You know, you had a lot of players like that they're the wide receivers that if they didn't do anything. Now, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Odunze, but their value's gone. I think Brock Bowers, if he puts up 350 receiving yards on 36 receptions next year, he's still probably tight end 5 or tight end 6.
Even do this for an exercise, Steven. Which of these receivers would you like instead of Trey McBride right now? Drake London, Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, Sky Moore, George Pickens, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, David Bell. They were all drafted before Trey McBride. 2 years later, you got to be taking him before most of those guys, right?
Yeah, I don't remember all of them what you said, but Drake London I would take ahead of him. But yeah, I mean it's a short list.
But after that, Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, maybe Chris Olave, Sky Moore, definitely not. There's one where the value that's tanked. George Pickens, maybe. Christian Watkins, maybe. Jahan Dotson, we have some question marks. I think it's just interesting because it was this commandment that Casey had, but Casey is also the first one to tell you he's already got a little asterisk next to Brock Bowers. He's saying this doesn't count. This guy's a wide receiver. This is a totally different thing. And it is. It's a totally different thing. He is a different animal.
I feel like we were just pushing Andrew around right there, like back and forth, like shoving him, back and forth.
The meme. Yeah. Jacob had the perfect meme the other day when it was just a little kid being shoved back and forth between two big kids.
Brock Bowers is an incredible prospect. I think he's as flawless as it comes. I want to attack the Marvin Harrison level prospect. We've never seen a tight end be a Marvin Harrison level prospect ever. So we don't know what it's going to look like. We saw one unicorn, we were told, one elite prospect, generational prospect, and he didn't hit. It wasn't hit yet. And we'll see what Kyle Pitts does, but
I don't have this in front of me, Andrew, but I can tell you wide receivers taken that high. There's only maybe 3 of them that I can think of, like taken top 8, Kyle Pitts being one of them. TJ Hawkinson.
Tight ends taken that high. Okay, good.
Yeah. TJ Hawkinson, I think he went 8. I would say prior to his injury, it was very hard to want to trade away TJ Hawkinson. It took him a little bit to get going, but you knew he was eventually going to get going. And then the other one, I think he went 6th overall, Vernon Davis, who was an Hall of Fame tight end.
But took a while to get going.
Yeah, he did take a little bit to get going.
That's what I'm saying.
That's kind of before like a lot of dynasty leagues were even going on, so it's hard to say what his value would have been. Now, he was a 4.38 40 freak athlete. Imagine that, Andrew. 4.38 40 at tight end.
Isn't that just Kyle Pitts?
Not that fast. But anyway, I think it's an interesting conversation. I probably will be stuck with this decision, and landing spot's probably going to be the decider for me.
Oh, absolutely. That's where I'll cop out and change everything. But moving on, because we got some more guys to talk about, a bunch more situations, and I I think this one again has a clear answer. I thought the last one had a clear answer. I guess this one doesn't. Either Kai's wide receivers in a similar tier to one another. This is we're past Odunze, we're past Nabers, we're past Harrison Jr. We're on to the next one. Two fast guys. You can't deny the speed. We have Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Both of these guys real young. Both these guys real fast. Brian Thomas is the other one out of LSU. A little lengthier, a little bit bigger, playing alongside Malik Nabers. Both of these guys played alongside potential first-round picks. Steve, I'll let you start. Do you have Xavier Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr. higher?
Well, Andrew, feel free. I mean, you can start one of these too.
I like to sit back and then pounce on you guys.
Yeah, okay. He likes to be the third one, and he has both arguments set up. He's just waiting. He's going to do whatever we're not doing. Yeah,
you know too much. All right, I got to take Jesse out.
He does. I think this one's probably closer to me, Andrew, than it is for you. I just worry that Brian Thomas. What if he just gets stuck being like just the deep threat guy? Like he's essentially Jamison Williams on another team, or he's Gabe Davis, where he's just going deep a lot and he's not running a lot of other routes. That's my worry with Brian Thomas. It's fun. He's freaking 6'3", ran a 4.3 40. All that's exciting. And then we got Xavier Worthy, who ran the 4.2, broke John Ross's record. But I do think Worthy way more than just a deep threat. I think that he can be used in a lot of places on the field, run pretty much every route. The only thing that worries me a little bit with him is being pushed around at the line of scrimmage, kind of like Jesse and I were just doing with you, with Brock Bowers.
We weigh the same amount, so me and Xavier Worthy, that makes sense.
So this one's really close for me. Again, I am going to lean Brian Thomas on this one, and I'm going to probably cop out to a little bit. I think he's going to be a little more valuable. I think that he, even if he doesn't do as well, I think he'll still hold some value next year. But this one's super close for me. But yeah, I'm going to lean Brian Thomas just a little bit on it.
Which one of these guys is the new Buffalo Bills wide receiver one? That would make a big difference. I have been an Xavier Worthy truther this whole time, and I got pushed around like the little kid when I first brought up his name, and then he ran a 4.2, and then everybody jumped on the same bandwagon. But part of the reason for me is do a little comparison of their freshman year. We do appreciate breakout age in dynasty still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when it's convenient.
Well, Andrew does. Come on, that's all he looks at.
Wait till I get talking here. Keep going, Jesse.
Yeah, I just think Brian Thomas Jr. As a young guy, 28 catches, 359 yards, and 2 touchdowns. At the same age, Xavier Worthy was going for 62 catches, 981 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He showed up at Texas, and this is kind of the Brock Bowers and the Ladd McConkey thing, for that matter. He show up and ball out right as you arrive. It's happening now at Ohio State too. A kid named Jeremiah Smith. I know you're just shocked that there's a wide receiver at Ohio State that's a true freshman that's going to be really good. Shocking, I know. But there's a guy that he's just all of the highlights at their camp is coming from a freshman. And that's what Xavier Worthy did. And, he was even skinnier back then. And, you should have been even more worried about him getting pushed around, right? So I think he's going to be used in the way that they use Puka and Cooper Kupp, where you motion them, you move them around, you get them. They have this new cheater route where the guy runs in motion and then just runs a wheel behind 3 guys. And it's all over Instagram that this is like cheating. And I'm like, whatever. It looks like he's motioning and running a wheel route. I don't know why that's cheating.
It's called the Shart route, by the way.
What is it called?
It's called the Shart route.
Oh my God.
Miami motion.
Okay. Yeah.
Apparently they put it in an article and they talked to Mike McDaniel. They were going to put it in the article. They couldn't because it's a naughty word, essentially.
Well, Xavier Worthy's about to shart some touchdowns. So he's going to be used in that way. And I think he'll be used in more creative ways. And I think Brian Thomas could be a little bit more of like that Chris Olave one-trick pony, throw it deep to him. So we'll see what happens.
Brian Thomas is the one-trick pony. All right, I got to dive in. So I am been Jesse's biggest op on the Xavier Worthy hype. I'm not a fan. Let's go talk about that freshman year he had. Anyone like a Jordan Whittington or a Marcus Washington out of Texas in 2021? Because neither of those guys went to the league. They were both old heads, and that was the guys Xavier Worthy was competing with as a freshman. Not a big fan of that. You guys ever heard of Malik Nabers? Have you guys heard of Keyshawn Butte? Both of those guys are going to be in the league. That's who Brian Thomas Jr. was competing against with this one guy.
Keyshawn Booty.
With this one guy, Jayden Daniels, slinging him the ball for his sophomore year as well, who again didn't do anything until his last year. Guys, I don't like Xavier Worthy. I'm not a fan. I can get bought in if he goes to the right spot. It's very Devon Achane of last year, where it's like, all right, if he goes to the Chiefs, I'm in. Otherwise, get me the heck away. This dude weighs 165 pounds sopping wet. I am not in. Hey, guys, Brian Thomas, he ran a 4.33. He weighs 45 pounds more than Xavier Worthy.
That's a dog food bag, Steven.
That's a big dog food bag. That's buying cheap,
so random,
cheap brand. That was really, really weird, but I like it.
There was no hesitation. He was just like, "That's a dog food."
Well,
brand.
they're 40 pounds. That's what they are. They're 45-pound bags. It says it right on the bag. You didn't know that, Steven?
Oh wait, hold on. Little dogs.
Yeah, your dog. You probably carry home this cute little, like you got one in each arm. Have you seen my dog?
Jesse,
Good Lord.
I use Instacart. I don't do any of my own shopping.
It just arrives.
Yeah.
You would.
To continue my rant, additionally, Xavier Worthy. Hey, guys, he had 981 yards his freshman year. Sweet. Go on to the sophomore year. He get it worse, 760 yards. It's fine. Junior year, where you're supposed to take off, he had 1,014 yards, essentially the same season as his freshman year. You know why he didn't get better? Because he was fast when he got there. He was fast when he left. He didn't pick up any more tricks. That second year, you look into it, he ended up playing on the outside where A.D. Mitchell had to play this last year. Guess what? His second year, he did terrible because he wasn't stuck in the slot catching screen passes. In this last season, 55 of his catches came behind the line of scrimmage or before the behind the line of scrimmage and 9 yards out. 55 of his 75.
You still get a point in PPR. It doesn't matter where they throw him the ball.
But they're not going to throw them 10 of those.
Hit that little point button.
Even where's the hook?
Because
where's the hook here? Because these rants are lasting too long. We're not even going to get, Andrew, to these final ones because you're going 20 minutes with each.
Hey, this is, you know what though, Jesse? These are the parts that make or break your draft. You know, some of these second round picks. So if we don't get through the whole thing, it's probably okay. Right. I will say, you know, Andrew, you just said how he's too small. We just saw Tank Dell, 165 pounds at 5'8", mind you. 5'8".
Dell is a good wide receiver. Xavier Worthy's not a great wide receiver. Xavier Worthy's fast.
His bad season that he was talking about, Steven, 60 catches, 760 yards, and 9 touchdowns.
That's not a get you notice kind of year.
You know what? I forget that I picked Brian Thomas. It's easy to want to go against Andrew. I'm finding.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here trying to argue for Xavier Worthy, but
that's why he has to go last because he's like he had. Well, no, this one I know he's not a Worthy guy, so
no,
okay.
I had to get that one out there. Anytime I get to attack Xavier Worthy, I'm in. Now we'll hop into another great conversation. If this is the last one we get to, great, because this is a really good one. I don't think this is 3 deep. I think this kind of goes more to just 2 deep. I think JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix question. This is the quarterbacks after the top 3 who are going to go possibly 1, 2, 3 in the draft. I think JJ McCarthy with the capital that's going to be apparent is kind of moving away. So if you boys are good with it, or hands in the air, are we all taking JJ over Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr.? Is that a question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm going to move us forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just JJ is going to go higher. It just makes sense. Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. This is a real conversation towards the middle or end of your first round. Steven, I'll let you start. Are you going with Bo Nix, Oregon quarterback, or equally old Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington?
Well, that first mock draft we did, which feels like it was a year ago now, when I took Bo Nix kind of early, like it feel like I was a different person back then. And I feel like I don't even know why. Jesse, you say this all the time. We get bored with the process.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm getting bored with Bo Nix a little bit. And I don't know, maybe it's that Michael Penix Jr. 40 time that I can't get out of my head. And maybe it's me thinking, you know what, maybe just in the right system, maybe like how Justin Fields wasn't really running the ball at Ohio State, but then he did in the NFL. What if we saw that with Michael Penix Jr.? I'm leaning Penix Jr. in this one. I really liked how he looked last year. I think he physically I mean, he just looks like he could be an elite athlete. I know the injuries are a concern. I am worried about that, but I'm going to go with both of the guys are old, by the way, Andrew. So this is going to be a tough one for you. But yeah, I'll go with Penix.
What about you, Jesse?
I think all three of those guys are going to move more than we think in the NFL.
Like mobility wise?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. I think that's what ended up happening with Justin Fields. Sure, at Ohio State, when your wide receiver core and your offensive line is better than the Chicago Bears, you can just sit back there and throw the pill all over the place. So I think these guys are going to have to get creative with their feet, and they're both very competitive. They're going to be, Bo Nix is going to have to go back to the Auburn days when he had to scramble and go get some yards. Both very athletic, both very, very experienced. For me, I'm going to go, and actually Michael Penix is getting a ton of momentum lately. So it's really interesting to watch the momentum and being plugged into social media for my second draft, Steven, because you can just like feel it. You can feel
you can. I know what you're saying.
It's wild, but yeah, he ran the 40. He's had a bunch of ex-teammates coming out just talking about where he layers the ball in. Joel Klatt actually has him above Bo Nix. I'm going to go Bo Nix because of the injury concern. There's just too many season-ending injuries for me. I think Michael Penix has a higher ceiling. So it's a little bit of that Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels situation. So I'm going to go Bo Nix because I think he's going to be on my Broncos. He's going to be distributing the ball at like a point guard, and he was hurt a couple times, but he was healthier than Penix was in his career.
Andrew, did I just say a plus for Bo Nix was going to the Broncos? Or am I just a jaded Broncos fan at this point?
Ew, anyone who lands on the Broncos is in for a fun experience. I'm with you guys. Kind of the same thing. Bo Nix, he's boring. Both guys are. I don't think Penix is going to move, but Penix's arm is just so much more upside than Bo Nix's. I'm just going to take whichever one falls further and hope for the best. But yeah, the injuries definitely scare me. I want to get one more conversation in, boys. This is where we'll end it off. Not with the next one we had planned, but actually one ahead of that. I feel like it's been like 10 years since we've talked running backs already. There's 3 running backs who are consensusly going to the, I can't say that word, consensusly going as the top 3. Jalen Wright kind of pops in this conversation sometimes, but Trey Benson out of Florida State, Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, and Blake Corum out of Michigan are the top 3 running backs in most drafts. Jesse, I'll let you start. Which running back, before we know landing spot, which is huge for running backs, do you like the most?
Another momentum pick maybe, because you guys know I love Blake Corum, but I think Jonathan Brooks has really been rising up boards. I think he's very likely to be the top running back taken, and if he goes to the Cowboys as the top running back, Cowboys did his knee surgery. We have learned, Steven and I, that I've been learning alongside with Steven, that those ACLs are not quite as crazy as they used to be. This guy could be productive as soon as next year. And the way Klatt talks about him, he's just an all-around guy. He does everything really well, and he's younger than Blake Corum. So I'll be the first to tell you, though, I love Blake Corum. I think that he could go to, the Chargers or the Giants and be their RB1. So I think he could be great. But Jonathan Brooks, man, he does a lot of things really well, and I think that puts him in a situation to get on the field right away and retain value right away.
Steven, I got to cut you off before you go. This is a moment we all have to, we need to like light a candle, have a little funeral. This is the first time Jesse is not taking Blake Corum as his dude.
And it was never even in question before this.
No.
But you know what? Jesse can pivot.
He can. I was just shocked.
He can adapt. Hey.
New tricks. I was just, Jesse, I know that took a lot for you to give to us.
That's right.
Proud of you. Steven, are you going to align with them, or will you go with either Trey Benson or Blake Corum over Mr. Jonathan Brooks?
No, the more I've researched this, it's pretty easily Brooks for me. In just almost every running back category I've looked at. Now, if you want to go back and look at Blake Corum's previous season when he got hurt, there's an argument to be made there. But I just think bigger, more prototypical back, super young. He's not even 21 yet. He won't even be 21 by draft day. And I think that the fact that people know, like, these guys take, like, I don't even think the ACL is like seen as a bad thing anymore. I think it's like I'm going to draft him. I think he'll almost gain momentum. He'll gain value as you get to week 1, and let's say he's not even starting, but he's maybe, let's just say he's with the Cowboys, for example. He's going to miss. He's on the PUP list. Come week, 4, week 5, people are going to be like excited about Jonathan Brooks. I think he's going to start gaining momentum at that point.
He's ahead of schedule. He's looking great.
Yeah. And for me, it's pretty easily him. Between Trey Benson and Blake Corum, I think it really depends on how you're built. I think if you're a team that is looking to win now, I like Blake Corum more. I think he's more ready to go. I think he's more versatile. I don't think he has a huge ceiling. I think he's got like a Devonta Smith or a Devonta Freeman ceiling, which Devonta Freeman did actually finish his overall RB1 once in a very weak year. I don't think that'll actually happen with Corum, but I think that's kind of the ceiling. Whereas Trey Benson, guy doesn't catch the football enough for me. He is explosive. I did once, back in the day before I knew anything, said he reminded me of Adrian Peterson to some extent. I want that scrubbed from anything I ever said before. I think he's fine. I think he's exciting and explosive, but he'd probably be my third guy in this list.
I really should have just taken that Trey Benson photo and just replaced it with Adrian Peterson just to spite Steven. Yeah. I'm with you guys, and Jesse and I don't agree on a lot of prospects. Here's one we agree on, so pay attention. I really like Blake Corum. I early on had him as the high guy, but I think I was one of the first ones out of our group to put Jonathan Brooks up there and just say forget injuries because I ignore important things all the time. And Jonathan Brooks, he just does it all. I'm with you guys. Trey Benson, Blake Corum, landing spot will really decide everything for me on this. But yeah, that's the last little comparison we have there of the night. Gentlemen, do you feel fulfilled having argued with me and turn yourselves against me as often as possible?
No way, dude. Let's keep going. You got at least one more in you there. I want to do that next one. That's it.
You want to keep going? Whoa, we're Jesse wants to continue the show.
Hey, Steven always tells me, he's like, hey, it's not 110 yet.
Andrew, I agree.
Trivia.
Unless you have to go. If you have to go, that's fine. But we usually push this thing to 116. We're at 102. I think
let's go one more. I just think this next one's really interesting.
For the folks at home, I'll do anything. Are you talking about this next one here? We do have a couple of preps, so mind my clicking around here. You're talking Braylon Allen versus Jalen Wright versus Marshawn Lloyd?
I think that one's actually really clearly Jalen Wright. I think that those other two players are meh. I think this Troy Franklin, Ladd McConkey one, though, that is an interesting conversation.
Well, start us off. We have Mr. Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon, had a great final season. Ladd McConkey, a little injury plagued out of Georgia. Jesse, you wanted to talk about it. Let us know which guy do you have over the other.
This is one's really difficult. I think that's why it's worth talking about.
Absolutely.
It's not really apples to apples because they are two different types of receivers. The more I watch Troy Franklin, the more I we mentioned Stephon Diggs earlier. He has some of those vibes. He looks like him when he strides. And even though he catches a lot of fades and deep balls and stuff, there is also some nuanced stuff that he does underneath. Oregon really worked hard to get him the ball. He had a better season than Ladd McConkey. It's just Ladd McConkey is that incredibly dangerous underneath wide receiver that is becoming so in vogue in the NFL. And we just saw Puka Nacua, break the rookie record. That's the type of receiver, that's the type of role that Ladd McConkey would be filling within an offense. I think the more I watch Ladd McConkey, I'm seeing I'm getting some Zay Flowers vibes. I'm getting some Antonio Brown vibes. He is just incredibly sudden and dangerous in that middle part of the field. And, if he has a safety or a linebacker on him, it's done. He's just so quick. So head and heart, typical situation here. I'm going to go Ladd McConkey. Just that's more of a heart pick. I do think that he could be incredibly dangerous in a situation where he's utilized all over the place, when he's in motion, when he's isolated on safeties and linebackers. I think he could be really dangerous.
Steven, what are your thoughts there?
This is a tough one. You look at the two players last year, Franklin, the better PFF grade, Franklin, the better breakout age, the better dominator rating, better yards per reception, yards per route run, college target share. It all points to him. But yeah, I feel like the NFL, I feel like Ladd McConkey is more likely to succeed at the NFL level. I feel like, and he reminded me of fast Cooper Kupp. This was before we even watched the combine. This is before the combine even happened. I thought he looked like fast Cooper Kupp. And then he runs a 4.39, has a 36-inch vertical, 124-inch broad jump that backed all of that up. So I think the NFL is going to know how to use him. I think that he's just a little bit more of what the NFL wants right now. So it's more of a gut feeling with McConkey. So I have him just like one spot ahead of Franklin, which isn't saying anything different than probably normal consensus. I give him just the slight nod. I really like Franklin too. I feel like I could, depending on which day you ask me, I could go Franklin, but I don't know. I just feel, and it's that momentum thing you're talking about, Jesse. I just feel like the NFL is going to take McConkey higher. So I'm feeling like he's the guy.
Yeah, I'm also going to hop in and go with McConkey. What stood out to me, and the reason I'm more and more feel good about taking that, is McConkey lined up everywhere. Troy Franklin is a Z. Like, he's light. He's going to try to run by you. He's going to get schemed up, as we saw in the Oregon offense. That's a limited use. You can do a lot with that. DJ Moore, ask him. He does a lot with that. Glad McConkey lines up everywhere. He had 78% of his snaps played on the outside. He was not a slot wide receiver in college. You know who's in the slot getting those easy reps? Brock Bowers. So, and we all like Brock Bowers. Although I fought for Rome Odunze. We all like Brock Bowers, and that was the guy he was competing with. There was George Pickens there very briefly his freshman year he was competing with. There's lots of good players that he was Adonai Mitchell, a phenomenal wide receiver, another plug that he was competing with while he was playing at Georgia. I think it explains it, along with the injuries, the lack of production. McConkey can do everything, and he does it all well. Only concern is he doesn't play contact amazing, but Troy Franklin does that even worse. So yeah, I'm kind of with you guys.
Yeah, Troy Franklin, I'm sitting here watching highlights while you guys are talking. He just goes down on first contact almost every single time. So, and I know Ladd definitely caught some screens or took a reverse and housed it, where he had to make somebody miss. So there's a little bit more, excitement in that area. So I really liked that one, Andrew. Sorry to make you stay a couple more minutes, but that was one where those are two really good players. It'll be interesting to see how the NFL evaluates them, and it may come down to draft capital. We may see Troy Franklin go, to the Buffalo Bills. They're like, oh, here's our that would be a funny one because I just comped him to Diggs, right? They're like, well, now we have a new young Diggs that can do everything that other guy did, and then we'll all be on that bandwagon. But I think, man, it's close. We're splitting hairs, really good players, and just overall rankings and tier wise, each one of these are in the same tier. So we're trying to do tiers within tiers. It's like a dream within a dream, Steven.
It's crazy how much, Jesse and I don't know when you started, Andrew, but Jesse and I have been playing Dynasty a while. It's insane how dialed in these rookie rankings. Like back in the day, it felt like the Wild West. You would get guys drafting, players at number 2 that you would not expect. There was all kinds of surprise picks, you'd be like, oh, I can't believe it. Now it is literally so dialed in that you can almost, the variation might be a pick or two from some of these guys. So I think these are good ones to talk about because, somebody's not going to reach and take probably, Brock Bowers, unless it's Jesse. Jesse might, but somebody's probably not going to take Brock Bowers at like 3. But that debate between Rome and Brock, I think that's a real one that a lot of people are going to have, and that's the case with a lot of these. So hopefully that helped.
The one I think of, Steven, that I think I think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire going number 1 overall, and like that we've come a long way even since then, right?
Yeah, that's not that long ago.
No, but like that's like it's technology, where we are so advanced.
Well,
now
and so many more people doing it too.
Yep, so many more involved. I just don't think that would happen in this day and age.
No.
Yeah. Hand up. We can get into this another time. I think the numbers community is going a little bit too far. I think there's a swing with this. Stephen and I have talked ad nauseum. Some numbers are just becoming meaningless. You can say as many numbers as you want. It doesn't make it meaningful. I think we're getting lost from the film, which Jesse luckily does as well as anyone else that I know.
That's why Jesse will always have a place here. I know he likes to joke sometimes that Andrew's pushing him out or whatever, but Jesse watches more college football than anyone I know. And probably anybody listening knows. So,
well, and I think a lot of times the context does help.
100%.
It's like I know I'm watching the Georgia-Alabama game when it's like it's on the line. This is the drive where we need to have it. And that doesn't show up in a PFF grade. But they're going to Brock Bowers in that situation. They're going to and Adonai Mitchell, they liked him in those situations too. In the playoff game, he went over to Sarkisian and was like, throw me the ball. And they threw him the ball down by the goal line. He scored. So yeah, we'll see. But that is something that I think context matters. And so you guys do a great job with the numbers and kind of evaluating those things. And then I get to go, well, when I watched the game, this is kind of what I saw. So yeah, it's important. Appreciate it, Steven. A little vote of confidence.
Oh yeah.
I heard that my our draft party isn't happening either. So
I keep calling stuff from Jesse.
You're gonna be at Disney. I don't even get to sit at a brewery. I got to sit at home by myself watching.
You know what though, Jesse? Here, think about this. You don't need. It's the first round. These are all the chalk picks, right? Like it's boring. Like we know where these guys are going. Jesse, day 3, me and you.
All right.
Brewery. Yeah. Because that's when it's like, oh, Jesse, I've got that guy. Like I know a little bit about him, but you can geek out about that. That's what we need to do. We need to get together for day 3.
You'll be back for day 3?
I might even be back for day 2.
Okay. All right. Well,
I can't remember what time. Actually, no, my flight's late on Friday. So yeah, probably day 3.
Hit me up, brother.
What he's not telling you is I'm also going to be at Disney with him, and we're doing your end of year performance review. But no, we like what we've seen so far, so no reason to be worried. Wink there. But yeah, that'll take us out of it. As we've talked, we're rolling year round with all this stuff. Jesse knows about these rookies in August before I've ever even heard of these dudes. So give him a follow at Debbie Rookie Watch. Follow the main page at Fantasy Guides to get stuff that we're all contributing to all the time. Please like, subscribe, follow, rate, review, share the podcast with everyone to hear so we can keep making this nonsense happen. Of course, drop that Guides promo code in Underdog. And gentlemen, I'm going to outro us here with my fancy little fade in music. So I'm not going to sound like...